Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, walking into your kitchen and reaching for the cereal you eat almost every day. The box is nearly empty. Normally, that is not a problem. You add cereal, milk, and maybe bananas to a shopping list, stop at the supermarket after work, and forget about it. But today, every supermarket has disappeared. Not closed for a holiday, not waiting for a delivery. Gone. At first, this might sound like an inconvenience. You would visit a smaller shop, order groceries online, or eat at a restaurant. Yet supermarkets are not simply large rooms filled with food. They are the final visible layer of an enormous system connecting farms, factories, warehouses, trucks, payment networks, refrigeration, and millions of households. Remove that layer and the food still exists, but the system that organizes it suddenly loses its main destination. In the United States alone, there were more than 45,000 supermarkets in 2024. They collect thousands of products from hundreds of suppliers and place them within a short drive of most consumers. The real product is not cereal, bread, or milk. It is coordination. They turn a complicated global supply chain into one simple weekly trip. So what happens when that coordination vanishes? During the first few hours, most people would not understand the scale of the problem. Some would assume the stores were experiencing a technical failure. Others would open delivery applications only to discover that most grocery delivery services depend on the same supermarkets. The application may still work, but there would be no shelves, employees, or local inventory behind the screen. Convenience stores and neighborhood shops would become the first alternative. Their doors would fill almost immediately. A shop designed to serve a few hundred local customers might suddenly face several thousand. Bottled water, bread, eggs, baby formula, and canned food would disappear first. Prices might not change during the first hour, but availability would. This is where human behavior becomes part of the economic system. If everyone bought only what they needed, remaining supplies might last longer. But uncertainty changes decisions. A person who normally buys one package of rice may buy 5 because they fear the next customer will take everything. That decision feels sensible for one household. When millions of households make it together, it empties the system. Think about your own kitchen. If you knew there would be no supermarket next week, what would you buy first? Keep that answer in mind, because whatever you choose would probably become scarce before sunset. By the end of the first day, restaurants would face a choice. Some purchased from specialist wholesalers and could continue operating. Others rely on supermarkets for emergency ingredients and smaller orders. Demand would surge just as their supply became less reliable. Menus would shrink, waiting times would grow, and prices would begin rising. People often imagine restaurants as an easy replacement for home cooking. But restaurants cannot feed an entire city every day. Their kitchens, seating, staff, and storage were built for a fraction of the population. Even if enough raw food existed, the capacity to prepare and distribute millions of extra meals would not. There would also be an immediate employment shock. Cashiers, shelf stockers, bakers, cleaners, warehouse teams, security staff, drivers, and store managers would lose the workplaces around which their routines were built. Some skills would quickly transfer into emergency distribution and new retail businesses, but wages would not move as quickly as workers. A parent could spend the morning searching for food and the afternoon discovering that the job paying for that food had vanished too. Suppliers would feel the same pressure. A company making supermarket labels, shopping carts, refrigeration equipment, or checkout systems might still own useful factories. Yet its largest customers would be gone. The disappearance would therefore spread through payrolls before it fully spread through kitchens. This is how a retail shock becomes an economic shock. It does not stop at the checkout door. The second shock would appear far from the customer. Every morning, farms and food factories send products toward buyers with expected schedules and quantities. Supermarket chains are among the largest of those buyers. Without them, trucks already on the road would reach distribution centers with nowhere useful to unload. Milk would remain inside refrigerated tankers. Vegetables would wait in crates. Bakery production lines would continue moving until managers realized that tomorrow's orders no longer existed. Food would not instantly become rare. In some places, there would temporarily be too much of it. That is the strange part. During the pandemic, people saw empty shelves, while some farmers watched food spoil because normal sales channels had broken. Food packaged for restaurants could not always move easily into grocery channels. A 50-pound bag of flour made for a commercial kitchen is not a convenient product for a family. The food existed, but the packaging, contracts, transportation, and buyers were in the wrong places. The disappearance of supermarkets would create this mismatch on a much larger scale. Cities would experience shortages while farms and warehouses held products they could not distribute efficiently. The distance between abundance and hunger might be only a few miles. Without coordination, those miles become economically enormous. Now look at the money. American households spend roughly $1 out of every 8 in their budgets on food. Supermarkets collect much of the portion spent at home, then send that money backward through the chain. Cash reaches processors, transport companies, packaging suppliers, energy providers, landlords, workers, and farms. Remove the supermarket transaction and all those payments become uncertain. Farmers do not receive the full amount shown on a grocery receipt. Recent United States Department of Agriculture data shows that the farm share of food bought for home use was about 18.5 cents from each dollar. The rest paid for everything that happened after the farm, including processing, transport, wholesale operations, retail work, energy, and other services. This does not mean supermarkets secretly keep the other 81.5 cents as profit. Grocery retail is expensive and competitive. Stores must keep lights on for long hours, refrigerate food continuously, pay employees, discard spoiled products, operate warehouses, and maintain thousands of locations. The supermarket is a costly bridge. But when the bridge disappears, farmers do not automatically receive more. They may receive nothing until a new route to customers is built. Within 3 days, local governments would begin treating food distribution as an emergency. Schools, stadiums, community centers, and parking areas could become temporary collection points. Wholesalers might sell directly to the public. Military or civil defense logistics could move essential goods. Rationing would probably begin with baby formula, medicine-related nutrition, water, bread, and basic staples. The first emergency boxes would look very different from a normal shopping basket. Choice would become a luxury. Instead of selecting from 20 kinds of cereal, you might receive oats, rice, beans, cooking oil, and powdered milk. I would miss my favorite breakfast. But the emotional loss would be larger than cereal. Supermarkets let us express identity through small choices. Without them, eating becomes less personal and more functional. That change would not affect everyone equally. Wealthier households could pay for private delivery, restaurant meals, farm subscriptions, or transportation to distant suppliers. Families with large kitchens and freezers could store more. People living in small apartments, working multiple jobs, or depending on public transportation would have fewer options. A system that looks equally inconvenient from a distance would become deeply unequal at street level. Older people and people with disabilities would be especially vulnerable. Supermarkets concentrate many needs in one accessible location. Without that concentration, buying food might require several trips to unfamiliar places. Time, mobility, and information would become as important as money. By the end of the first week, prices would send confusing signals. Products still in high demand would become expensive. Perishable products trapped near farms might become extremely cheap or be discarded. A city could pay 5 times more for tomatoes, while a farmer outside the city could not find a buyer for the same crop. Entrepreneurs would respond quickly. Empty warehouses might become temporary food halls. Technology companies could create platforms connecting wholesalers directly with neighborhoods. Restaurants could sell ingredient boxes instead of cooked meals. Farmers could organize pickup routes. Apartment buildings might place group orders large enough for commercial suppliers to accept. These solutions would help, but each would expose work that supermarkets normally perform quietly. Someone must inspect quality, divide bulk quantities, keep food cold, manage payments, handle returns, forecast demand, and decide where limited products should go. A digital application can match buyers and sellers, but it cannot refrigerate milk or unload a truck. This is the point most people miss. Removing the supermarket would not remove retail. It would scatter retail across thousands of less efficient locations. Small neighborhood shops would be among the obvious winners, but success would bring pressure. They would need more workers, more storage, stronger refrigeration, better security, and reliable suppliers. Many would expand. Some would combine into purchasing groups. Over time, the most successful groups would open larger stores offering more products under one roof. And slowly, they would begin reinventing the supermarket. Online grocery companies might also grow, but only after building independent warehouses and delivery networks. If their original model depended on workers collecting products from supermarket shelves, it would fail on day one. Companies owning inventory and fulfillment centers would have an advantage, yet delivering individual orders to millions of doors would remain more expensive than letting customers collect their own food. Farmers markets would expand, especially for produce, eggs, meat, and local specialties. But seasonality matters. A farmer's market can offer wonderful strawberries in summer. It cannot easily provide every household with coffee, rice, soap, frozen vegetables, cereal, cooking oil, and cleaning products throughout the year. Modern diets depend on processing and international trade as much as local agriculture. Large wholesalers would gain enormous influence. They already understand storage, purchasing, and transport. Some would open directly to consumers. Others would supply the new neighborhood networks. Their bargaining power could increase because fewer organizations would be capable of coordinating food at scale. Meanwhile, commercial property would change. Thousands of supermarket buildings and parking lots would become available. Some might turn into distribution hubs, community kitchens, housing, clinics, or smaller indoor markets. Ironically, many new food networks would choose these sites because they already have loading areas, electrical capacity, and locations near customers. After 1 month, the emergency would become a redesign. Households would plan meals more carefully because replacing a forgotten ingredient would be difficult. Food waste inside homes might fall. People could cook more basic meals and depend more heavily on shelf-stable products. Community buying groups might become normal. Neighbors who barely spoke before could suddenly coordinate weekly orders together. There could be positive changes. Farmers might develop stronger direct relationships with consumers. Local shops could return to neighborhoods abandoned by large chains. People might understand seasons and food production better. A shorter supply chain could keep more money within some communities, but romanticizing this world would be a mistake. Local systems can be resilient, yet they can also be expensive, limited, and vulnerable to regional crop failures. Supermarkets spread risk across many suppliers and regions. If one farm has a poor harvest, buyers can source elsewhere. That invisible diversification is one reason shelves appear dependable. The environmental result would also be mixed. Fewer giant stores might reduce energy use in some places, but thousands of separate delivery trips could create more traffic and fuel consumption. Large shipments to central stores are often efficient. Convenience for the customer and efficiency for the system are not always opposites. Within several months, new businesses would begin looking strangely familiar. They would combine direct ordering, neighborhood pickup, refrigerated storage, bulk purchasing, and standardized quality controls. Customers would demand more choice. Suppliers would prefer buyers able to place predictable large orders. Investors would fund networks that could repeat the same model across many locations. Eventually, someone would put thousands of products inside one accessible building and allow customers to choose everything themselves. The supermarket would return, perhaps under a different name. That is the deeper economic lesson. We often judge a business by the objects visible inside it. A supermarket appears to sell food. In reality, it sells reliable access to variety. Its shelves are a physical map of contracts, forecasts, delivery routes, cold storage, labor, and trust. If supermarkets disappeared, humanity would not forget how to grow food. Cities would not become empty overnight. People would improvise, governments would intervene, and new companies would emerge. But the transition would reveal how much ordinary life depends on coordination we rarely notice. Tomorrow morning, you might still find enough cereal for one last bowl. You would pour the milk more carefully. You might save the bananas for later. And for the first time, breakfast would feel connected to farmers, truck drivers, warehouse workers, refrigeration systems, neighborhood shops, and thousands of decisions made before you woke up. The store was never the whole system. It was the place where the whole system met you.